Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. This episode is powered by Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement. Learn how to boost your income without relying on sessions. Get a free training on the blended practice model by following at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Maya, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with you. For people who aren't familiar with you and all the amazing things you're doing around the sport of volleyball and obviously down there in Charlotte, North Carolina now, would you mind filling them in a bit about who you are and all the amazing things you've got going on?
Yeah, excited to be here. I have been playing volleyball since I was very, very little, and I'm very blessed to be able to be playing in college here at Wingate University. I'm a setter right side, and I'm going into my junior year. Last year, my team made the Elite Eight, and we got to go to the national tournament in South Dakota, which was really awesome. A couple of us received All-American awards, which was also super cool to be honored like that. And I'm really excited for this season too.
Absolutely. No, it sounds like y'all are doing some amazing stuff in the volleyball space that way. And what an incredible experience for you all to make the Elite Eight and go to the tournament last year and so on. That sounds absolutely incredible. I'd love to hear more about how we got here because, I mean, just kind of knowing you a little bit and just from what you just mentioned, it sounds like volleyball is a very integral part of your life and it's been a very key part of your life for a long period of time that way.
It's actually funny. I grew up playing, I think, like 9 different sports. So I always played volleyball because my mom played in high school. So that's how I kind of got started and got hooked on it. But then I also played like ice hockey and I did gymnastics and I did tennis and like all the sports. And I just fell in love with volleyball. And so I kept doing that one. And I think I started club volleyball around 12 or 13 years old. And then it kind of just took off from there. All the other sports like fell away. And then it really became like such a huge part of my life. And I think the coolest part is that it has opened like a lot of different opportunities for me. I've gotten to travel like to so many different states for volleyball. I went to Europe, I think like last summer, for volleyball. And then I also have been fortunate enough to go to college for volleyball too. So it's a lot of things that I never would have done if I didn't have the sport.
Yeah, such a rough life. My goodness. Where's your favorite places that you've traveled to that volleyball has kind of taken you to that way?
I mean, Europe definitely that was fun. That's really, really cool. We went to, the tournament was in Pula, Croatia, but we also played in Austria, Slovenia, Slovakia, and then we visited Italy for a day. As far as like United States, I had a tournament in Boston that I really liked. And I also really enjoyed a tournament in Columbus, Ohio, actually.
Now, both of those locations kind of surprised me a little bit, knowing you've got that Tampa, Florida background. Those are a little different than Tampa. My goodness.
Yeah. I think that because I'm so used to like the warm weather and like the tropical feeling and vibe, it was really fun to go like not for long because I don't like the cold, but just for like a weekend with my parents and kind of explore a new city. Boston was really cool. I'd never been up in the Northeast, so that was fun. And then Columbus has this really cool like market. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like an indoor type of like warehouse and they have a ton of different like food options and that was just like the highlight of my trip.
Oh, always here for all the food. It's so funny. I was just working with a few other athletes from Michigan the other day, and in the middle of the podcast, I was like, I need those food recommendations that you just like mentioned that way, because we always have a tendency to bring the big back energy to things like this that way. But I love that you've been able to travel so much because of sport and go and explore all these amazing different places that way. Now, you said you played 9 different sports growing up, which is just a lot. My goodness. I don't know how you kept track of all of it. If it wasn't volleyball, what do you think you would have been doing right now?
I don't know. I like focused in on volleyball pretty early on, so it's hard to tell, but I always really enjoyed hockey. That was like always super fun. I don't know how good I would have been at it, but I would have enjoyed it for sure. And then I really love tennis. I played that in high school a little bit too, so I still enjoy playing sometimes. And pickleball has really taken over.
For sure. I love that. And what made you decide ultimately that, hey, volleyball is the thing we're going all in on?
I think like the team aspect, I was also doing gymnastics at the time, and so the like it is a team for gymnastics, but it is also very individual. And I think like the appeal of having like the whole team and like the friendships and the relationships and connections you make was something that I really loved. And then I love like the adrenaline, like during the game and how like fast paced it is. I also played soccer and that like I love the game and I love to watch still a lot of my family and my boyfriend play. But like personally playing it, I felt like there wasn't always like as much fast action as there is in volleyball. And so I love that you can just like rally, point, and it's just super like fun and fast paced.
It really is. It's so, so fun to watch. And you never really know what could happen. It's like, one team might be winning by 10 points and then you blink and all of a sudden it's a tie game. It's so unpredictable. And I really like that, as you mentioned, the fast pace of the game that way. It's so fun to watch. And I mean, even just looking back last year at some of the final games, like that Louisville Penn State match is still kind of etched in the back of my brain because it was just so, so epic to watch that unfold. And I think that it's clear that the sport is growing that way. What made you decide? Obviously, you played club, you played school ball, and so on that way. What made you decide, like, you know what, this is something I definitely want to play in college? Did you always know that was in the works, or was it maybe something that we didn't initially see in the cards that way? Or how did you kind of go about the whole kind of next level decision?
Honestly, I don't ever remember being like, I don't know if I'm gonna play. I think like since I was 12 years old, I was like, I'm gonna play a sport in college. Like no matter what it is, I'm going to. And then it just like naturally it became volleyball, and it wasn't like something I decided on. It was just kind of like I guess I already was going to do it, and then it just kind of all the like actions you have to take to get recruited and stuff were like the process, the next steps in that. But I don't ever remember there being like a decision or like a one day I want to do this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can understand that. It's like it's a ever evolving process, if you will, and it's something that I've found a lot of athletes just struggle with at first because it's a big decision to make, and it's like, maybe they want to, maybe they don't, maybe they change their mind. There's just a lot of different pressures and factors to consider around that, and I think choosing the right school and right team environment is also one of the more stressful considerations for a lot of athletes as well. What made you decide, what, I want to go up here to Charlotte, I want to play for Wingate? What were kind of the key deciding factors and variables for you?
Well, I knew I wanted to leave Florida for college. I love it so much, and I'm probably going to end up living in Tampa again. So I wanted to kind of go and experience a new place. And but I didn't want the cold. I didn't want like super, super cold. So this was kind of a region like Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina I was looking in. And then I was just kind of looking at programs with winning records. I didn't have like a preference, D1, D2, D3, NAI. I was kind of looking at all of them. And by the way, I also would love to talk about this later, but I think it's like a huge mistake if you're like D1 or nothing. I found Wingate and I didn't actually reach out to them. I just knew that they were a really strong team and program. But I was at a tournament in Orlando, and the assistant coach at the time, now she's the head coach, Lauren Tekovich, she was watching my game and she gave a card to my coach. And then I emailed them, reached out, and then they invited me to go to their camp. And that was the same time as Team Florida, which I don't know if you ever heard of the like USA All-Stars regional tournament kind of thing. But I recently made that, and it was in Omaha this time at the same time as the camp. So I had to decide to go to camp or go to the Team Florida team thing. And I ultimately decided to come to camp, and thank goodness I did because that's what convinced me to come here. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think sometimes it's just so, so awesome to be able to just kind of send it and experience some of those different opportunities that way, whether that's a camp or a clinic or whatever that way. I think a lot of times just getting out there and doing the thing and traveling to the place can really help you kind of clarify what the future holds that way. I think that's really, really awesome. And I think it's interesting too that you mentioned, the D1 or bust mindset maybe is a little bit misguided, because there certainly seems to be a big push and pressure now more than ever to go D1 in sport. And it's so interesting because I was talking with some athletes about this recently, and they were like, yeah, well, one of the reasons I love my sport and continue to play it, and the whole reason they ended up going D1 for their sport even, they credited to the fact that there was never pressure on it. They were like, yeah, my parents growing up, they were like, look, it's great you play soccer, but you don't have to. And, even if you don't play your sport, your identity is not the sport. We're still going to love you and treat you the same, regardless of if you're playing soccer or not. And I think that a lot of times now, that's not the case for athletes, and they feel pressure to succeed, pressure to make it at a certain level or whatever it is that way. I'd love to hear more kind of about your insights and perspectives on that whole concept of choosing a university. Does division matter? And, if it's maybe just a little bit overhyped and putting unnecessary pressure on athletes.
Yeah, I think especially 16, 17, when you're doing like the whole recruiting process, there's a lot of coaches and a lot of people that will tell you that like a D1 is the sign that you made it. It's like if you go to a lesser like D2, D3, NAI, JUCO, even, that like it means that you're not like truly a college athlete. And I think it's like pretty obvious that the children or like the girls like take on that mindset too. Like you see like a commitment post and it's like hashtag D1 or something, and it's like it doesn't really matter, because obviously there's going to be like the Power 5 and D1, obviously, and that's going to be like better than D2, D3, and NAI. But then there's going to be a lot of like mid-major D1s or like the high-level D2s that are going to be like similar, matched up, or even JUCOs. Like you see JUCO transfers going to D1 all the time, and it's like never like a lower level that they are than the team they go to. And I just think like everybody needs to look for what's going to fit them best, not for a certain like title or number on like the shirt or whatever that they're wearing. I think like especially people think, oh, D1 is the only way to get money, but like D2 offers money, NAI offers money, JUCO offers money. Like there's a lot of ways you can do that, and D3 offers a lot of academic scholarships. I think that people are like misguided in thinking that too. So there's like a lot of opportunities to go to colleges, and I also think like D1 is not as important as a winning record. Like you don't want to go to a school that says like they're D1 just because they're D1, but they're like 0-30. Like that, it could be a building program, and like it could be that there's other things that you're attracted to with the school. But if you're going there just for volleyball, it's not going to be fun, because ultimately everybody wants to win. Like that is why we play volleyball. Like it is part of the process of winning, at least for me personally. So that's kind of what I was looking for too.
You mean there's a bit of a competitive element to the whole thing, really?
Yep, definitely.
My goodness. Yeah, no, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because some of those things you mentioned parallel today's podcast with Dakota so strongly. And that was one of the things she mentioned is like, we need to have a family first culture wherever I go. I want to like feel like my teammates are family. I want us all to get along and kind of be on the same team and, not get caught up in clique and petty stuff and all that sort of thing. But also we are here as a team to compete and to win. So we need to have that competitive element and that willingness and drive to push one another and strive for greatness that way. And I think that there are programs out there that do an incredible job of that. And it certainly sounds like you've found that where you are in Charlotte. But there's also programs out there that I don't necessarily experience them personally, but I hear stories, and it just kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit as far as like, hey, do they have clear defined goals that everyone on the team is working together for? Is everyone involved in it for the greater good of one another, or are they just playing for their own self-interest that way? And I think to your point as well, a lot of individuals use money as their main like financial incentive or motivation to go somewhere and do something. And it's like, look, like that money might help you in the short term, but in the long term, if you don't see yourself being in that area or being happy in that area, then maybe it's not for you, right? Like recently, I just moved to North Carolina, and, at least a part of that was, hey, I was living, in a spot in Maryland that I didn't see myself there long term. And it's like, hey, look, if I don't see myself here in 10 to 15 years, I don't know if I want to stay here much longer. Like I'd rather go someplace where I see myself long term than maybe just in and out in a year or two that way.
Mhm. I think also, like, aside from the money, I think that, realistically, like, thinking about your own, like, athletic ability, like, would you rather go to D1 and sit on the bench, or would you rather go to, like, a D2, D3, NAIA, and play? And I think, like, that is a lot of like, that's a question a lot of athletes have to ask, because some people are okay with maybe, like, sitting the bench for a couple years and then playing, or, it's not all about that for them, but then other people need to ask that question, and they need to realize, like, no, playing really does matter, so maybe D1 or, like, higher D1 isn't going to be, kind of like what fits me best. And I think that is also, like, really important to talk about, because the whole, like, D1 or nothing kind of promotes, like, sitting on the bench and then playing, when it could be, like, personally for someone else, not good for them.
I completely agree. And one of the other things that always broke my heart, just from the physical therapy side of things, I meet a lot of athletes that are injured. And one of the things I've seen more often than not is athletes that push so hard for that D1 or bust. And then they make it. And for one reason or another, they're injured very early on. And they feel crushed. And I almost feel, crushed as well, because I feel crushed as well, I should say, because I just watched this athlete put in all this time and effort and energy to achieve their goal of making it to that level. And then they get there and then they're injured and they can't play and something happens. And it takes you from, 100 miles an hour and top of the world all the way back down to rock bottom almost immediately. And it's just so painful to watch that happen to athletes. And to your point, it's like, maybe if we remove some of these pressures, maybe stuff like that doesn't happen the same amount. It'll still happen regardless, but maybe it doesn't happen to as many people if maybe we just back off on the pressure and the need to go to every tournament and every event and every single practice from, the day you turn 10 for the rest of your life. Like, sometimes I think we maybe push it a little too far and we kind of forget the enjoyment piece, in addition to the competitiveness. Don't get me wrong, but it's still something you have to enjoy. And I think the fact that you had such a diverse background in sport probably helped you succeed in volleyball more than, just playing volleyball all the time.
Yeah, I think there's, like, a lot of things to be said about, like, being a well-rounded athlete. I think, first of all, it's really fun being able to go and play different sports. Like, even now, you can, like, pick up something a little bit easier if you, like, grew up playing different things. But I think it's also, like, really important for parents to realize that it physically makes your body stronger and, like, prevents a lot of injuries down the road when you are using, like, tons of different muscle groups in tons of different ways across the board with multiple different sports. You're, like, in a sense, injury proofing yourself in, like, such a simple way. And I think that there's also the side where, no, I'm going to train in my sport for, like 40 hours a week, and it's going to be, like, super intense, and that's how I'm going to get better. And I think that there can be a time for that, but I think, like, very early on, or when you're still, like, developing and even, like, your growth plates are fusing, like, that's the time when you should be just, like, playing different things or trying new things out, or finding ways to move your body that's different than the same way you already do in practice every day. And I think, like, you can probably talk more about this on the kind of, like, PT or injury side, but that's something that I've seen is, the way that like, even gymnastics is you have to be so strong, and so there's a lot of, like, innate injury prevention in the sport itself that has, kind of benefited me all throughout my life too.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned gymnastics earlier too. And it's one of those things. It's funny. I was just on a call with a gymnast earlier this morning, and I wish that almost every athlete got some kind of exposure to gymnastics and just this concept of learning how to move and control your body in space and all that way. Because I just think about volleyball and some of the weird positions you might land in sometimes and weird jumps you take and different things that way. And it's like, the more aware you are of things, I think the better off you're going to be long term. Because I mean, you probably never do the exact same jump and landing sequence twice. Like you probably just don't repeat it because it's just so variable and unpredictable as far as where you're going to be diving on the floor and laying out to versus where you're going to be jumping up versus like if it was a great pass to you to set the ball for your outsides or if maybe it was a little bit less than what you were desiring to get. Like you always have to solve problems in such a unique, ever evolving way. So to me, it's almost like, the more well-rounded you are, I feel like the better you're going to be at the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, we've talked a little bit about how we've gotten you to this point in your volleyball career that way. But what we missed, and you actually brought it up, was the academic side of things, because I think a lot of athletes overlook the academic side and they think, well, I'm an athlete, so that's all that matters. When in reality, I think that there's so much positive things that come from the classroom as well. There was one athlete, or former athlete, I should say, that we've worked with a number of times on the podcast who's got like 3 master's degrees. And I'm like, dude, go off. Like you've got way more degrees than I have and probably more than I'll ever have at this point that way. What's the academic side of university look like for you, Maya? And what kind of made you decide to go the route that you did that way?
I'm actually graduating early. Yeah, so I did a lot of I got a lot of credit from high school that transferred, and so I'm probably going to be able to do my master's for my last year of eligibility, which is another really cool thing. I think a lot of the like fifth year and COVID year type of thing also gave a lot of athletes opportunities to get higher education in maybe a way that they would have like put on pause or done later in life or never gotten around to. So I think that sports really do complement academics. I love to learn and I love like the classroom, and so academics are super important to me. But I think that's also like huge question. I mean, back to the whole recruiting process is like how important are academics to you, and then what type of like school or like what type of majors are you looking for, specialties, and so yeah, I think that like volleyball is important, but you're not going to be a volleyball player forever. And so the degree that you get or whatever you invest in when you're at school is really important too to take out of that. And like realistically, there's very, very few amount of people that go on to play professionally or like even like semi-pro after college. And so it is important to think about kind of like where like what you're going to take from college academically too.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're an absolute academic weapon, just getting after it in the classroom. My goodness, bachelor's degree in 3 years, going to have a master's degree afterwards. Like, that is no joke. How do you balance the classroom work with volleyball, with also maybe having like a little bit of a personal life on top of all of that?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually joking with my family this year because I'm taking a lot of credits this semester, and I was saying like, well, something's gonna have to give because we got a lot of credits, got volleyball, I got a social life, I have a boyfriend, like that takes some time, and um, so I've been thinking about that too, but I think like the main thing is really trying not to procrastinate, and that's really hard, but I think like the faster you get things done the more time in life you just have. I think it makes it a lot easier, like mentally on yourself, if you get things done like right away instead of waiting till the deadline. That's something that I really have tried to do. I also love working like on my own, not necessarily in class, or like as part of the curriculum. So I think like sometimes like during class I'll be doing assignments or like things that relate to the work, and I think that has really helped too. College is kind of it's up to you, the professors are, not there like because they like you need them. I mean, obviously you do need them, but the professors like it's really up to you if you want to take advantage of your education. And so if you take advantage of it, then you're going to get the most out of it. And I think that with like balancing your kind of work life kind of per se with your sport and your academics is just really important to get things done like fast.
No, absolutely. The time management piece. And it sounds like you're someone that doesn't really mess around. You just get after it, get it done, and move on to the next thing that way. What other kind of advice or insights do you have for people that are maybe, in similar positions to you where they're trying to figure out or struggling to figure out, I should say, how to balance different life demands, whether that be sport, classroom, personal life, dating, beyond, whatever that way? How do you kind of make it all work outside of just, hey, we're going to get after it and get it done right away? Is there any kind of secret sauce or any kind of little like gems that you've picked up along the way?
I don't know about like secrets, but I do know that there's going to be like times when you have to say no or like sacrifices you're going to have to make. And I used to hear that and I got like really like, oh no, like what if it's something that I really am going to be like upset about? But I think that like when you are so focused on your goals and you really want to accomplish what you've laid out for yourself, like saying no is not really a sacrifice. It's just kind of like a necessity. And I think that like there's times when you're just going to not be able to go hang out with your friends or, I lived in an apartment with some of my friends and then one of my all the time and hanging out, which was super awesome. But they love to watch movies late at night, and I would be like, "Look, I gotta go to bed because if I don't go to bed, I'm gonna be tired tomorrow, and I'm not gonna do my homework, and then I'm gonna be tired at practice, and then it's gonna be a whole cycle." So I think like setting your boundaries and like being really clear about like your health and what's important to you. If you get in those habits like really early on, it's gonna be super easy to keep those, and it's going to help for the rest of your life.
You got wisdom beyond your years, Maya. Are you sure you were like a junior in college? My goodness. It's so difficult to say no to people, though. That's one of the things that I've certainly struggled with over the time that way is saying no and learning when maybe it's not the right opportunity. And I think that comes with experience, but I'm still young and dumb enough to just want to pursue everything and throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But I can certainly see we're almost kind of developing a little bit of a filter, metaphorically speaking, that says, hey, these things are worth the time, worth the effort, worth our energy. These ones are not. We need to say no to them, and we need to say no sooner rather than later, because going back to what you mentioned before, procrastinating on it and putting it out to the last minute doesn't ever really help anyone. So the sooner you get after it, the better that way. I think that's great insight. How about in relation to, as you mentioned a few times, that concept of prepping for life after sport? It sounds like you've kind of come to peace with this understanding of, hey, like I'm not going to play volleyball for the rest of my life, and there's life outside of sport that way. How did you kind of get to that level and that line of thinking where you're okay with the concept of sport ending? Because I know a lot of athletes really, really struggle with that transition.
It is scary to think about. Like I still get sad thinking about, it feels like it's all gone by so fast. I feel like I was just a freshman moving in and now I'm going to be a junior and then this is my, I guess, last couple years, last half of college. But I think that the main thing is that I've realized my identity is not in my sport. And so when I give up my sport, I'm not giving up myself. And I think I would love to play kind of after college. So like we'll see what happens. There may be some type of way that volleyball will be incorporated in my life post collegiately. But I think that like that's the main thing, just realizing that I have a life outside of volleyball and that life is important too. And so when volleyball ends, it won't be like the end of the world. That's like a huge thing is my faith is my identity is in God and it's not in the sport that I play. And realizing that has actually made me a better volleyball player because it's made me able to kind of like have perspective on things. If I have a bad day or a bad practice, bad match, it's not the end of the world. And I can like focus on being better, but also not dwelling on the past. And I think that a lot of athletes can do that and have kind of like a reframed mindset. And I think that if you can get to a point where volleyball isn't, or whatever sport you play, that it doesn't like define you, then I think that you're going to end up being a better player like in the present moment as well too.
Absolutely. No, I could not agree more. It's so interesting that you bring that up because that comes up a lot on the podcast when I'm talking with athletes. Most recently, the one that comes to mind is Tenley from Baylor. And we had a pretty lengthy discussion, I think, about her faith and the incorporation of faith in her sport and athletics and so on that way. And there's something incredibly powerful about some of the lessons, in my opinion, that come from a faith-based background and how they impact your ability as an athlete, but also just as a person, because at the end of the day, it's really got to be a human first kind of thing. I don't care what the sport is. I don't care if it's even something beyond sport. It's like, it's a people first thing to me. How you treat other individuals matters. The kind of person that you are when other people aren't around, your character, those defining moments, that matters to me as well. And I think a lot of the teachings that come from a faith-based background can really help you to navigate those things, right? Because unfortunately, sport is not just a marathon of ups. There's times when things don't go your way. There's times when things just hit the wall. And for lack of a better way to put it, there's times when things might really freaking suck, right? Like I've worked with athletes literally the day that they've been injured, the day after they've been injured. I've seen some the day of a surgery, the day after a surgery, and there's some tough times in there. It's not necessarily promising that everything is going to be easy, but it's more so the understanding that you have what it takes and you have the strength, if you choose to surround yourself with the right people and the right teachings, to get through anything that life throws at you.
Yeah, for sure. I used to be like really scared that I was going to get injured and kind of have like a career-ending injury or kind of just like miss a whole season. And I realize now though that if I did have an injury, it would be like a defining moment for the rest of my life. That would probably, and I'm sure you see this all the time, but I'm sure that people like personally develop too, like their character and their perseverance and the way they work towards it. And I also know that like God would have a plan for that, and it wouldn't be kind of like the end of everything. There would be like a brighter side on the end of it. So I kind of have stopped like fearing an injury. Obviously, I don't want one, but if it had to happen, I would come to peace with that. And I think that's also part of the like having peace with volleyball ending in the like after college too.
Absolutely, because you never know what those terms are going to be and what it's going to look like. And to the point you just made on injury, the amount of athletes I've worked with who have been unfortunate enough to injure something in their knee, and then after they kind of return to sport afterwards, they look at me and they tell me that they're thankful it happened to them. It still kind of baffles me a little bit because it's something I would never wish to happen. I don't ever really want to go through a knee injury or something like that myself, but there's something empowering and transformative about that process of literally like taking the timeline of a year and going from not even being able to walk all the way back to playing your sport at the level or beyond the level you did previously. There's something incredibly powerful and transformative about that, as you mentioned. And it's certainly one of those things, though, that I think you can learn a lot of those things without getting injured. You can learn a lot of those same lessons without getting hurt. As we start to wrap up here, because I know you've got to run that way, we've covered a lot of different ground, and I really appreciate your perspectives and insights on things. I mean, like I mentioned before, you seem to really have wisdom beyond your years in relation to life and your overall outlook on things, Maya. Are there any key things or any kind of closing thoughts that you have that you really want to mention to people listening today?
I think just work really hard where you're at. I think like a lot of people have dreams and a lot of goals and or they wish that it were better. And I think that if you just work really hard with what you have and where you're at, then you will find yourself like growing and going into better places. And so I think that I would just encourage everyone to work hard, but then I also would just encourage everyone to find their identity outside of their sport, because sports are not forever. They can be a cool and amazing aspect of your life and give you plenty of opportunities. But at the end of the day, it will always come to an end. Even professional athletes retire. And so I think that finding something else that, and I would also always encourage your faith because I'm a Christian and I believe in God. But I think that like if you have outside influences that are kind of your rock can keep you grounded when things are hard or when something that has been part of your life has ended. I think that is going to be so huge.
Absolutely. No, I could not agree more. Those are great points, Maya. For people who want to find out more about you, get in touch with you, and obviously keep up to date with the volleyball season and all that's about to unfold for you, where can they find you at?
You can follow the Wingate Volleyball Instagram if you want to kind of like follow our team. But I have a TikTok account that I actually post pretty frequently on for volleyball content. So I don't know, people might enjoy it, but it's just my name at Maya Van Heyst. So yeah.
That is awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just keep up with Maya and everything her and her team is up to. Maya, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.